Hey guys, this is my video production manager. Her name is Moose, and she's a 2.3-pound Chihuahua, and she hopes you like this video. Moose, are you going to say hello to the people? Say hello, Moose. In this video, I will be looking at the Lunt 40mm dedicated hydrogen alpha solar telescope that I received recently. I will be showing the scope and what I ordered with it, that I ordered direct from Lunt. Now a note on that, I am so glad that I ordered it direct, as Lunt took no credit card information until the scope was ready to actually ship, and then I was easily able to update the order when I needed to. I will also be comparing the 40mm with the older Lunt model, the 35mm hydrogen alpha solar telescope, which I also own. I will be trying different filters in place of the BG38 blackening filter that originally came on the 40 and give my opinions which I felt was better. I will also describe what eyepieces I used and what I thought worked best. I do not do photography at this time and am strictly visual. Now I want to say right from the beginning that I didn't really want to spend a lot of money. I just wanted to get a, I see that they had this better focuser that I could get. So I decided to just upgrade the 5mm. But I think that this scope is an excellent scope for somebody that just wants to get into hydrogen alpha viewing, or you just don't want to spend a lot of money. In my case, I just didn't want to put a big outlay, and the detail is tremendous. I will guarantee that you will not be disappointed if you buy the 40mm. Very happy with the detail shown and the quality of the product. So we'll start at the business end, the objective end here, and again it's 40mm diameter. One of the things that, a complaint that I would have, if anything, would be that it comes with this cap. It's a rubberized, nice cap, but I don't know if it offers much protection. I did a YouTube video showing how I replaced with a different cap, but that is more rigid. But I wish they would really have an option, because I know they want to hold costs down, but I wish they would have an option for a cover that was aluminum, that comes like with the astrophysics telescopes. I would gladly have paid extra as an accessory to get a nice aluminum covering, which is rigid, which would more protect the objective end. So here you see the Talon. Now this is your tuning dial that allows you to adjust the bandwidth, and as you can see, this is opening. It actually tilts. And what you have then is on the other side, which this acts as pretty much a hinge. Kind of interesting how they did that. And it's got a nice aluminum cell here, the interface between the two. And this is how you tweak and see the different features on the disc or on the limb. Now it does have this Vixen dovetail that you see here, which is 4 inches long. But in my case, I added another Vixen style dovetail to the bottom of that. And the good thing is, this is threaded 1/4-20 multiple places for you to do such a thing like this. And for also, if you want to put it on a tripod, versus if you're going to use it on a saddle that has the Vixen type of accessibility. And here you see that plate that I put on. And the beauty of this plate is, didn't have to do any drilling of holes. It's all milled out here, recessed, I was able to use these two holes. It worked beautiful for somebody that doesn't have much machining ability and you just want to be able to add something to it without any other mechanical work. This is excellent. And then of course you've got two stainless steel socket head cap bolts that I used 1/4 with a washer. And for anyone interested, if they want to use this same dovetail, this is the one I used off Amazon. Does come supplied with this nice soul searcher. It's a Teleview product. And for those that aren't familiar with it, it's got this small hole in the front which when aimed at the sun projects it back onto this translucent disc back here, and all you do is get it to where you see this hole projected back around the center, and that will line you up in the telescope. Now it does have means of alignment. You can loosen up this disc, and you can also loosen these up to adjust it if you need to get it lined up to the optical axis of the scope. Here's a view from the back side, or actually from the side that you would be looking at while aiming it at the sun. Next up, before we take a look at the focuser, we're going to take a look at the diagonal. And I wanted to get the B1200 diagonal versus the two smaller ones that they had. I believe it was a 500 and a 600. Now to take this out of the scope, very simple. You've got the stainless steel knurled knob here, very nice, and you just simply loosen that and the diagonal comes out. So next, guys, is what I want to show you. Is very cool. The design of this scope is very nice, well thought out. I'm a real picky person, and whenever I look at something, I like to look underneath the hood, how it's built, how it's constructed. So let's take a look at this. This is the nose piece on that diagonal. It unscrews. Revealing the blocking filter inside. Now, we notice that there's threads on top of where the eyepiece goes in. Let's see what happens here. This also screws into that. Now, let's look at one other thing here. This is the focuser, and you'll notice it is threaded too. Let's see if that works. Now this is cool. So what we have here, those threads are M42 by 0.75 pitch male T2 threads, standard T2 threads. So this allows you to add accessories not only to the focuser end, but to the end here if we're doing any photography or such, to adapt things with the standard T2 thread. So I think that is very, very cool. Next up, guys, we want to take a look at the focuser. Now, I did pay an extra price for it. It wasn't cheap, but they did allow an upgrade of the Feather Touch from Starlight Instruments. And I've got several of their focusers on my astrophysics refractors. Been very happy with them. And for me, it was worth the extra close to $500. But again, you don't have to spend that. You can get the one with their standard focuser and be very happy with the view. Now, I'm real picky, and I did want something. To me, this is worth the extra money. But we're going to take a look at this focuser. So I also, when I originally bought it, I just got the focuser, the standard, without the, what do you call it, the slow, the 9-to-1, whatever, focusing ability. Then I thought, let me go ahead and get it. It was an extra $160 to get that feature, which you see here, which allows you to go slow. This is would be then your coarse focus, and then this would be your fine focus. Now, as you can see with these bearings, this is a Crawford style. I've never used a Crawford, wasn't sure how I'd like it, but in this particular application, it is excellent. Rock solid and very smooth, butter smooth. The total travel is 3/4 of an inch. Here we see it all the way out. Here we see it all the way in. And for those of you that are familiar with the Feather Touch products from Starlight Instruments, they are very high quality, very precise. Your friction adjustment and locking of the focuser is right here. Now hopefully you can see that, but there's actually like a brass plug in there, so that is pushing against the shaft instead of the actual bolt pushing against the thumb screw there, the knurled thumb screw. Instead of that pushing against the shaft, you've got a brass plug that you're pushing against. So very nice details that I like to see. Okay guys, so I've got the old 35mm, and I also have obviously just received the new 40, and I thought it'd be interesting to compare the two because a buddy of mine also has the 35 and the 40. He got it here a while back. In fact, I did a YouTube video showing how I fixed his focuser. He had a helical focuser on the 40, and I fixed it for him. It got loose and it didn't work. So in any event, I thought I would do a comparison. One of his complaints the day that I was at his house is when it rained, and we didn't work that day because of the rain, so that's why I went out. He lives a ways from me, and so I went out there to fix it that day. But his complaint was the 35 is brighter and he could see flares better than he could in the brand new 40. So we're going to take a look at that. Now as we look at it from this point, the 35mm is to the left, the new 40 I got is on the right, and you'll see that I have my observing chair. Believe me, when you're doing side by side and you really want to tweak and really look at detail, an observing chair is nice because you're comfortable. You don't have to worry about squirming around. So I've got the observing chair, and I have both these scopes on my Last Mandy AZ8 out as tripod. And also guys, it is windy today. I live in the country, get a lot of wind, so the wind is coming out of the southwest today, turning out to be a beautiful day. But so what we've got here is I loosen this on the horizontal axis, and to get it to balance out, I have the 40 like this, and then I've got the 35 up a little more. I've got a longer dovetail bar on this, shorter one on the 40, and I had to make like a shim block out of 1/4 inch by 1 inch wide to get the scope further away from the saddle plate, because you can see up here, if it didn't, it would hit here at the objective end. With the 40, it's not an issue because I have a shorter dovetail. Before we go any further, the scope closest to the camera here in the foreground is the 35mm. Has a clear aperture of 35mm. The F ratio is 11.4, which gives a 400 millimeter focal length. And the specs say that the image is approximately 3.6 millimeters in diameter. Now we have in the foreground the 40 millimeter, which is 40 millimeter clear aperture, at an F ratio of 10. This also gives 400 millimeters. So the 35 and the 40 are both 400 millimeter focal length. They'll give the same magnification. Specs say that the solar image is going to be approximately 4.0 millimeters in diameter. Now the 40, as seen on the left, I just received this on Thursday, May 18th, 2023. The 35 I bought in 2014, and still got the box and everything, and at the time I bought it, it was called the deluxe version, and that they had at the time came with an eyepiece. And don't recall, it seems like I paid $600 for it. For some reason it seems like it was $600. And just something else I thought was interesting, the box that the 40 came in is down below, just plain white box. The 35 came in this nice colorful box with a lot of print on it and a lot of information on the outside. Now the specs on both the Italians are stated to have a wavelength of 656.28 nanometers. Both scopes came equipped with the Teleview Soul Searcher, and both of them are lined up very well. I didn't even have to touch them. Now the 35 came equipped with the B600 blocking filter. I ordered the 40 millimeter with the B1200 blocking filter, that if I ever bought a larger aperture Lunt, I could also use it with that. Here you see the blocking filter and the B600. In here you see the difference in size with the 1200. The B600, the B1200. Here you see the Italian of the 35 millimeter. And the Italian of the 40. One of the major differences is that the 35 millimeter had a helical focuser that you would turn this, but the eyepiece would also rotate with it. Whereas with the 40 millimeter, I specifically ordered the Feather Touch with a dual speed focuser. Now that did come at an additional cost of $460, but I think well worth it. Now with this 40 millimeter with the B1200 blocking filter, I am using this extension because you got to pull this out a ways to get some eyepieces to focus. Now the extension that I have on here now is this piece right here that you see me rotating, which I'm going to buy another one of those from Agena. But that is the Blue Fireball Technologies, and it's a 1.25 inch spacing ring, so that's the diameter, and it's got a 0.75 inch or 3/4 inch long extension. It is the number S-1C. B1200, B600. B1200 on the left, B600 on the right. Now this is the coating. I don't know if it'll show up quite as deep as what I'm seeing, but this is the coating on the B1200 blocking filter. It's blue. It's actually a very deep blue. Now it might be hard to see this. This is a green on the B600. Again, this is the one I bought in 2014. This is the blocking filter that was on at that time. Well, my buddy was correct. With the 35mm, the images are what I would call, not sure what word I want to use, much brighter than the 40. And even if I take the B600 out of the 35 and put the B600 into the 40mm, I get the same results as I do with the B600. And then if I take the 1200 out of the 40mm and put it in the 35, I get a dimmer view. So there's something in the blocking filter. Don't know if it's the what is the one that they use now in the 40? I think a BG38, blue-green 38. So I'm going to call Lunt. I believe I asked in the past if they had any of these, and they said no, that they don't have those. I'm going to try to find out what that number was. I know a buddy of mine, the same buddy of mine, he gave me a website from Europe where they're using a different filter. I may entertain doing that. Now, I liked both views. It's kind of a catch-22. If you didn't have this to look at, to compare to, the images are great in the 40. But in a lot of detail, wealth of detail. But in the 35, it was brighter. Now, I'm almost wondering if we can't come up to where they're intermediate between that. You know, not quite as bright maybe, and not quite as dim. But I've been out here for quite a few hours today, and going side to side, which is the beauty of this, because you're using it under the exact same conditions, same eyepieces. I'm switching them back and forth. And earlier there was a very faint little like arch. It only went up, it arched and stopped at maybe about 120 degrees worth of arch off the surface. I saw it with this, and I don't know how you want to call this, but when you turn this thumb wheel, as we're looking at here, counterclockwise like this, and the gap gets bigger, I could actually tune it in even better. Whereas with the 40, I start out with no gap, like this, okay? There's no gap in here. And I could just perceive it in the 40, where I could, in that same position here, I could see it. And I was able to even tune it in better. Whereas when I tuned the 40, I pretty much lost it. It did not tune as well. But then there's other features that I'm able to tune in with the 40. With the 40 all the way closed, again, no gap, you can see a wealth of detail. It's just diminished. You can see both the surface and flares. This seemed to show the flares a little bit better. And then the surface detail wasn't quite, I don't know what the word I want to use was, maybe a little less surface detail, but then you could tune it in and out. Now, with the 40, I was getting excellent views, tuning it back and forth here, opening it up, tuning it, and getting different features on the surface. I mean, it was beautiful, so there's no complaint there. But I think it's in the blocking filter, because I really didn't believe my buddy. I said, you know, but he was right, and he much prefers the filter that's in the 35. I kind of am in between. I like them both. What would really be nice is if there was a filter say something like this. Let me get this out of here. This is a Batter UV IR cut filter, an L filter, 1.25 inch. It's the stock number 2459207A, and I'm going to be putting this in front of both of the diagonals here. I'll be putting those in there also. But it'd be nice if they had a blocking filter, because you can take these out. Take that blocking filter out and get different ones that you can just screw into the nose piece, okay? Because the nose piece is threaded for these 1.25 filters. So that would be the ultimate. Now, one scope, I can mix and match, and so I'm going to look into that. And I will call Lunt and see what I can come up with. Now the clouds are starting to move in. I was going to try some other eyepieces. We'll see how this goes. I may have to go back with other eyepieces at another time. But at least I've got this much, and I wanted to go through, like I said, today. At this point, we have the 8mm and the 9mm, and I'm going to use various different eyepieces. So here's something I did with the B600. I decided to take and put a Batter neutral density filter, 0.6, T equals 25%. It's the number 2458343. And then on the end of that, I just put on this UV IR cut L filter, the 2459207A. But when I did that, I'm basically getting the same results that, but it's still brighter than the diagonal, than the B1200, than the blocking filter. It's still brighter, but I do see that I lose some prominences. So I think part of the key is the blocking filter is too dark in the 1200, and I somewhat proved that by putting in this neutral density filter. Another thing I did is I took the filter combination out so that I can see in real time. I would hold it like this, look through it, pull it away, back and forth, so I didn't have it in there permanently. And some of the real faint flares, some certain details then, would obviously go out. So what I need to do is get the type of filter that's in this B600 and put it into the B1200. So I'm going to do a little experimenting. I'm going to take out the BG38 filter that comes stock with the B1200 diagonal. So I'll just simply unscrew the nose piece. This is an extension I put on. And then that will expose the retaining ring, so I can pull that out. And to take out the silicone that they have in there on the retaining ring, I'm going to use a toothpick and just try to take that out, remove that. Yeah, and that seems to have worked well. I just got it away from the threads, so I should be able to unscrew it now. You can see right here the silicone, and I just took the toothpick and brought it behind it to break away from the threads. This is the silicone that Lunt uses should you want to ever replace yours. If you had to take out the blocking filter and then you put the retaining ring back in and you want to use it. This information was given to me by Faye. So then I'm just going to take this spanner wrench, which I did a review of on my channel here, and I'm going to take out the retaining ring. In fact, I'm going to do it off camera here because it's going to be easier for me to do this without trying to look through the... I don't want to do any damage to this. And easier to do this off camera. I wish that silicone came off easier, because now I'm just kind of dragging it along. Here you can see what I'm talking about. That silicone. Now it's all over the place. But I think they said they use that for shipping so that doesn't get loose or something. She said you actually don't need it. Okay, so I don't want to get the silicone inside the unit. Let's try that. Well, that's what it looks like. You can see that damn silicone all over the place in there. I'm going to have to get that out before I might use a little shop air to take care of that. So on second thought, I think I'm just going to try to tip this out and tap it out on some Kleenex. Let me see if I can't tip this down and then take the Kleenex and try to get all that out of there. I'll never replace it with the with silicone. It's just not going to do it. But I'm holding it upside down like this off camera and then rotating the Kleenex around in there to get all the silicone out. I don't want that going inside the unit. Alright, to get all that off the retaining ring, I used a little rubbing alcohol with the Kleenex. I didn't want any left on there, so that's how I took it off here. Okay, so I took my time, and again, holding it upside down like this, I did the same thing, put rubbing alcohol on Kleenex, and just kept at it, kept using new Kleenex, and getting all that silicone out of there. There you can see the undercut, the bore here that the blue-green filter sets into. And then so that I don't lose the retaining ring, I put it back in there and just snugged it down. Okay, so I thought since I had this out, I would measure it, see what the diameter is. Yeah, I really don't want, yeah, there we go. I just didn't want to get fingerprints on it. Well, so there you see it, 785. Let's see what the millimeters are. 19.94, so basically 20 millimeters in diameter and 0.785 inches. Now for the thickness, we're getting 98 thousandths, or 2.49 millimeters thick. So here's what I want to try to do. I'm going to use this Batter UV IR cut CMOS L filter, and it's their number 2961570, and I want to then try these different Batter neutral density filters. We have the 0.6, 0.9, and the 1.8. And what I'll do is I'll put the neutral density filter on this extension and then put the UV IR filter on top of it, so that when the light beam's coming in from the Talon, it's going to hit the UV IR first and then any other filter that I put in after it. I want to see if I can brighten up the image. So here's what we got, guys. Now that I took that blocking filter out, and today is the 27th of May 2023, and it's the Memorial weekend here in the United States, and a little windy out here. It's coming from the northeast today. I'm facing west, or kind of a little off west, and so what I've done is I've taken this Batter 0.6 neutral density filter, and as I stated when I was inside the house showing you how I took it out, I put that one in first, and I got to tell you, I am 100% pleased. The 40 that you see on the left now mimics the 35 in brightness and the detail. I can see so much more. I'm not sure why Lunt did that, if people were complaining it was a little too bright, but for visual, I love it. Now, we do have some high clouds here, but the point, thin clouds, but the point that I'm side by side, I'm able to take the eyepiece. I've got an 18.2mm delight, so I can go back and forth under the exact same conditions. I'm very, very pleased. I might try some darker ones, but I really like the fact that you can, I wish they would do it like this, where they just had filters you could screw in and out and try different things. Maybe photographic, you want it brighter, maybe dimmer. Maybe they don't do that for safety reasons, I don't know. But this is, like I said, I'm really happy. The new 40 now mimics the 35. The detail is spectacular. I can just, very, very pleased with it. Like I said, the images was brighter in the 35. Now they are in the 40. Well, guys, some clouds coming on. I hope not, because I hope I can do some observing tonight with my telescopes. But so then next, I put in the Batter 0.9, and it was very pleasing too. It was a little dimmer, but still very pleasing. And then I did the 1.8, and it was terrible. So you can't, no way you can use that. So to make sure you know what I'm doing, I've got the Batter neutral density filter, 0.6, transmission 25%. That's right up against the extension tube I have in. And the one that I want out, that the sunbeam comes in first, is the Batter UV IR cut CMOS L filter. Alright, so for today I've got to give it up because the clouds are coming in too thick. But again, the 0.6 Batter is really nice. That's the one I'll be using. And again, brightens up the image, and it mimics what the old 35 was doing visually. Now, I don't do photography yet or anything, so that may all change photographically, but for visual observing, that's what I'm going to be doing. Okay, so I do want to address the use and safety of the UV IR and the neutral density filter. I sent an email to Faye, and it said, is the filter listed below completely safe for visual use, as we talked about me replacing the BG38 with a neutral density and UV IR? It is important that it does. And then I listed in the email the Batter UV IR cut L filter, CMOS optimized, with the link. Then I said, does it eliminate all harmful UV and IR to the eye for visual use in the Lunt 40mm H-alpha solar telescope? And so here is her answer in part. I checked with our production manager, and ultimately we want customers to use the filters we provide. That being said, we know that the Batter filter is safe for visual use. If you ever plan to use that in lieu of the regular BG, take a lot of care to ensure it is always in place when using the system. Since it is mounted in a cell, you would likely be threading it into the eyepiece barrel. That is why we wanted to mention that. Now, I know I had spoke to Faye previous to me even buying the scope, looking at different forums, and they were trying different things. And one of the things that I was looking at, again, after my buddy had mentioned he thought his was too dark, and just thinking, how could I maybe possibly lighten it? I had mentioned to Faye that I would be putting this in the nose piece. So as you see here, we have the UV-IR first. Then right after that, we have the batter neutral density filter. In this case, it's the 0.6. And then that goes directly into the extension that I have, and then that goes into the nose piece. So that when the Italon, the light comes in from the Italon, the first thing it's going to hit is that UV-IR, then the neutral density, and then go through the diagonal system of the Lunt. So obviously this is the safest way to do it, is that way you always ensure that the UV-IR is in the system, and it's so easy, just thread it into the nose piece of the diagonal. It's always there, something you don't have to worry about. Now let's take a look at Lunt's website. We go up to Resources tab, and then go down to where it says Lunt Solar Safety. And then let's look at the redundant filters. People ask why we incorporate so many IR and UV filters in the system. The multitude of safety features we employ ensure that our customers will be protected. They are protected even if they use our products improperly. For instance, should a person accidentally place a standard nighttime diagonal in the rear of a solar telescope, the view would be bright but safe. Because of the addition of multiple filters and safety features, a person simply standing in the sunlight receives more ambient UV and IR radiation to the eye than when they are looking through one of our solar telescopes. So I think that is very important, and obviously the reason why Faye said I could do what I'm doing. And again, even putting another UV-IR into the system. But again, anybody that decides to do this, you do this at your own risk. I'm just pointing out what was told to me by Faye and what I'm seeing on the website. Now, something you may need that I'd like to point out is an extension on the nose piece of the diagonal. And I ultimately decided on, because I had different ones I tried, so ultimately what I did is I just used the 1-inch extension from Blue Fireball. Now the reason for that is when I put an eyepiece into the blunt diagonal, I didn't want to have to move it up and down. I wanted to put it all the way in, tighten down the 2 locking screws, and then what I would do is I'd normally set this about halfway and then move this to where it's about focused. Now I can go back into the focuser and find focus. And with some of the eyepieces that I had, I was using either Radian's, Delight, or Delos eyepieces from Teleview. And so I found that I would have to, instead of pulling it out back and forth in the eyepiece and here, that I would have to slide it out here and sometimes get into this area. So that's why I mentioned that. But it just depends how you're going to use it. You may elect to just put the eyepiece in here and move it up and down. But I point this out because I would rather just put the eyepiece all the way in, tighten it down, and be done with it. So next I want to take a look at, I had asked Faye in the event I ever had to, if there anything got on the front of the Italon, what would I need to do to clean it safely? What did Lunt recommend? And here you see she says, thanks for your patience. For cleaning, we recommend isopropyl alcohol. If you can get a high grade version, that's great, but you can also use the kind from the drugstore. You'll want to apply that to a plain white tissue, no aloe or colorings, etc., folded into a pad. You can use swiping motions over the surface to clean the objective when needed. For persistent spots, we recommend something very basic. Apply saliva to your finger, then target the spot on the optics. Follow up with the iso alcohol as needed. You can also use methanol on the objective as an alternative excuse me, to the iso alcohol as well. do not use acetone, as it could potentially make contact with the paint on the tube and cause cosmetic damage. Now what I found interesting is when she said for persistent spots, we recommend something very basic. Apply saliva to your finger, then target the spot on the optic. And I remember it's been some time back where Roland from Astrophysics actually said, I believe with tree sap, if it got on a lens, that you could do that, the affected area. So find that that carries on then to the Lunt objective, should that ever happen. Now one of the things I always do every time I'm done with the scope is I always use this air blower, make sure I get any dust off the objective. This is a Giotto, and you can get these off Amazon, and they are excellent. This is the larger one. They do a great job of getting dust off your optics, eyepieces, etc. I also make sure that when I'm not at the scope, I cap my the lens. So, and I do that with any telescope that I have, because while I live in the country, of course it doesn't matter, and there's birds, and of course we know why that can happen. I've actually had bird droppings, never on a lens, but, and it's rare, but it has happened, you know, on the telescope or somewhere. So that's why I'm so careful when I'm not at the telescope to cap the objective on any scope I have. Now as to the tissues, the plain white tissues, I use the Kleenex brand, and they have no aloe or coloring, so you want to make sure when you buy them that it does not have any kind of lotion. So now I want to take a look at the eyepieces that I used. Now I used the Radians. They're no longer available, but people may still have them. Then I used the Delight and the Delos series. These are all Teleview eyepieces. And I just used a couple different kind. I didn't use each and every one. And as you can see here, we have the series. Then listed under that will be the millimeter eyepiece I used. And if there's any notes, I put those in. So if we start with the 18 millimeter, 18.2, and the 17.3, they all worked excellent. But when I went to the 14 at 28.5, 26.6, and 28.5, and then after again using all the other eyepieces, I found, that's why I have the highlighted bold, that range was for me my go-to focal length to begin a viewing session. And I also felt that these would be an excellent magnification if you were doing public outreach, that a viewer would easily be able to see the solar disk and not have to search, you know, just a comfortable view for someone that's not used to looking through an eyepiece. Next, we have the 10 millimeter at 40 times, the 11 millimeter at 36.6, and I felt this was good even under adverse viewing and seeing conditions. Now we'll go down to the 8 millimeter at 50 times, the 9 at 44.4, and I felt this was good for seeing intricate and delicate details on the solar disk. In fact, if I was going to only use 3 eyepieces, they would be the in the 14 millimeter range, the 10, and the 8. Now, I prefer the Delos, so in my case I'd be using the 14, 10, and 8. And then you'll see that some of these don't come in those exact, so that's why we have 11 and 9. So in that range, again, those are the 3 that I would take with me if I was only going to take 3 eyepieces to view the solar disk in a hydrogen alpha scope. Next, we have the 6 millimeter at 66.6, the 7 millimeter at 57.1, and I can still see the entire solar disk with these 3 eyepieces. You do need good seeing conditions. If it's real windy, or again the seeing is just kind of rough, I found these not to be the best. Now then I thought I'd go down and try my Delos 4.5mm, which is 88.8 times. I can still see the entire solar disk at this magnification with that Delos eyepiece. Seeing must be good. Now I will say that I do have floaters. Sometimes they're worse than others, and I noticed that using this it accentuated my floaters. I could see them easier. But anyways, and then I also tried the Delos 3.5 at 114.2 times. At this point, I cannot see the entire solar disk, but it's real close. Okay, if seeing conditions are really good to get a closer detail of the flares. And it was interesting. I would search around the limb of the sun and then tweak the, adjust it and bring the detail in and out. But again, you got to have good viewing conditions at this magnification.